responsibly.
It's time to get your family into boating. The Huntsville Boat Show is back January 16th through the 19th at VBC. Shop, compare, and save thousands on your family's dream boat. Hundreds of new boats to purchase on site. Shop pontoons, wake surf boats, fishing boats, and more. Visit HuntsvilleBoatShow.com.
No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
A wise man once said, if you take care of old folks and children, everything in the middle will take care of itself.
Hi, I'm Danny Aldridge, lawyer in Alabama and Tennessee. In the next 20 years, the number of those folks over 65 years of age will more than double. In our golden years, the most important goal is to be treated with dignity and have control over doing what makes you grateful with those you love. At the Aldridge Law Firm and the Legal Town Center, we're dedicated to help you with these goals, and we'll be there when life throws you those inevitable curveballs. Let us assist you with your legal needs, whatever they may be or become. You may reach us by phone at 256-534-3188 or online with Dan at danaldridgelaw.com. Just remember, we're here to help. Whether it's personal injury, wrongful death, fraud and cheat, or estate planning made complete, we're here to help.
From the University of Alabama, this is Crimson Tide Today. It's a daily update on Bama sports, and it's brought to you by CB&S Bank. Bank anywhere, at any time, with CB&S Bank's digital solutions. Managing your finances has never been so easy. Hello again, everybody. I'm Roger Hoover. On Friday night, Alabama gymnastics started the season with a dominant performance against North Carolina. Here are thoughts following the meet from the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Ashley Johnston.
I am so pleased with how tonight went. Going into it, our mindset was to start strong and to handle the noise, meaning there was going to be a lot of distractions, nerves, doubts, things that everybody goes through their first time competing during a season. And I thought our team handled that tremendously well, from having to pause the meet at one point to having 50 to 70% of each lineup being a brand new routine. There was a lot of reasons that this team could have been phased, but they were not. They continued to focus on the things that they could control, continue to invest in each other in what makes them great on a day-to-day basis, and we're able to just stay in control of the whole night. And I think that's the name of the game, not to try harder, not to try less, just to stay in the driver's seat.
I'll have more in a moment.
CB&S Bank has a long history of stability and a legacy of serving our community's needs for generations. You could say we know a thing or two about tradition. We've been family, community, and financially strong since we began in 1906. Being a team player is part of our culture. That's why at CB&S Bank, we're proud to sponsor the University of Alabama Athletics and prouder to take the field or court with you. Visit cbsbank.com today. Member FDIC and Equal Housing Lender.
Join us tonight for Hey Coach and the Nate Oates Show, presented by Alpha Insurance, live at Baumhauer's Victory Grill in Tuscaloosa at 6 p.m. Central. Crimson Tide Today is brought to you by CB&S Bank. Crimson Tide Today is a production of the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Welcome to Talkin' Ball with Scott Theisen and Drew DeArmond. Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline now, 256-576-4977. That's 256-576-4977. Now, here's Scott and Drew.
Well, there we go. There you have it. We're back. We're live. We're brand new. We're off. We're running. We're everything. And we are live from Bill Penny Toyota on a Monday morning. Welcome in. It's Talking Ball, 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Scott Theisen, Drew DeArmond. Welcome in on a Monday as we are sitting here getting another week started. 256-576-4977. You can join us this morning if you would like. Don't forget, Bill Penny Toyota Service Department's doors are open. They're open Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. On Saturday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And right now, until January, looks like 31st, you buy 3 tires, you can get that 4th one for $1. All right, we get you started this morning, and a little history. If you were watching College Game Day on Friday, and we'll get into some of the numbers for those that did not watch the game on Thursday, one of the lowest college semifinal ranking or ratings of all time. We had almost a 10 million viewer decrease from last year's semifinal between Alabama and Michigan and the Penn State Notre Dame game. But if you were watching College Game Day on Friday, leading in to the Ohio State-Texas game, I am sure you heard this. Reese Davis, the gang from College Game Day, sitting on the set, and this is what you heard.
Since the advent of college football in 1869, more than 6 million people have played or coached this great game, and 0.02% of them have made the College Football Hall of Fame. And even among that 0.02%, I think there's even another level reserved for the greatest of all time. And this December, coming up in Las Vegas National Football Foundation Awards Dinner, their new Hall of Fame class will be announced. And headlining that class will be the greatest college football coach in the history of the sport, Nick Saban.
Congrats, man. I didn't know anything about it.
It's happening right now.
Coach, we actually have a game ball printed out from us.
That's great.
This is a surprise to you. You're the first one getting announced, but I think what I was told, and Reese, you can back me up, easiest vote in the history. You all think of how you've represented the sport, how you've done on this particular program, talking for the sport that you've committed your entire life to. Congratulations, Coach. And we love you, man. We absolutely
Thank you so
love
much. But anytime anything like this happens, it's because you had a lot of great people in your organization, a lot of great players, a lot of great coaches, a lot of support staff, and they made a great team. And I was happy to drive the bus, but we had some great people on it. So thank you so much.
That was on College Game Day on Friday. The other inductees will be announced later this month, but Nick Saban announced on College Game Day he is headed into the College Football Hall of Fame. 27th inductee in program history, and becomes the 5th Alabama coach to be elected to the College Football Hall of Fame.
Greatest college football program in the history of the sport, and like I said, it's well deserved by Coach Saban. You can make a very, very strong argument that he is the greatest of all time. I think he is, considering the era that he had to navigate through and all the rules that were changed to combat his success that didn't work. And so it's apropos that he would headline the class. Congratulations to him. It's an awesome accomplishment. It was well done by ESPN, and that's a rarity.
Oh, 9-time National Coach of the Year, 28 seasons, 297 wins, just 71 losses, and 1 tie.
Yep, had more first-round draft picks than losses. So
1 tie. Do you remember? I don't know where the tie. I don't know if that came early in his career. I don't know where the tie came from.
I don't. It wasn't at Alabama. It was during his time, I believe, at LSU. I think he may have had a tie during his time there. He was only the coach at Toledo for 1 year before he went to work for Belichick with the Cleveland Browns and had to get the hell out of Cleveland. Everybody does. But anyway, he like I said, he took the Michigan State job, and then he went to LSU, and then finished his career the last 17 years at Alabama. So certainly well deserved. And again, not sure when the tie occurred, but again, I'd have to go back and look. It was either at Michigan State or LSU. I think it was at LSU. But you got to remember, during his head coaching odyssey,
they changed the overtime
rules.
Yeah.
They brought overtime in. They did away with ties, which is the best thing they ever did because it was stupid. So, but I mean, but again, he had remarkable success because when he left Michigan State, they had a 10-win season. They beat Ohio State and Notre Dame in the same year, and then and then he went to LSU, and they had been horrendous for a decade. Unfortunately, the Curly Hallman situation didn't work out, and LSU had fallen on hard times. But we all know what he did. He kind of awakened a giant, and then Les Miles took the baton, kept it at that same level nearly for 11 years, won at a very high clip. And then even Ed Ogeron, an idiot like that, was able to win a national championship as head coach. So, he and Gene Chizik, Dumb and Dumber. When it comes to fluke head coach, fluke national championships by coaches that weren't elite. I mean, Gene's a good analyst. Don't get me wrong,
and Gene was
a great head coach.
And both of them,
look at his career record.
Both of them, Gene Chizik and Ed Orgeron, were decent in their position coaching. Gene was and he went to
really
Texas, didn't have the same success that he had early in his career. But he was a solid, you're right, defensive coordinator. Ed Orgeron was a great line coach.
Was a great defensive line coach, yes. Both of them in other facets of their careers were excellent to very good. So no question about that. They just weren't head coaches.
Right.
And we've seen that. Neither was Mike Shula.
50, you mentioned that, 52 first-round draft picks for Nick Saban, the most by any coach in college football history, 47 of those coming at Alabama. 133 of Saban's players were drafted into the National Football League, an astonishing 91 going in the first 3 rounds of the draft.
And I love our listeners. Somebody's listening. They've already sent us the tie, and it was at Michigan State.
Where was
35-35 against Purdue in 1995.
1995, the one tie.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess that was Joe Tiller's Purdue.
In 95 with Drew Brees.
I mean, I'm just saying. I think that was the time that during the tenure of one of the most underrated coaches. He's no longer with us, but Joe Tiller at Purdue because he was kind of one of those spread guys who threw the ball all around. And you're right, he did have Drew Brees, and Drew Brees came out of Austin, Texas, and became one of the all-time greats. But 1995. 35-35, that was the one tie for Nick Saban against Purdue.
Mike Allstott was on that Purdue team.
Oh, wow.
In 1995.
Nice. I didn't know if that was what tenure that was during, but again, mid-90s. That would have been the year after I graduated high school, so many, many years ago. But that was during Nick Saban's early time at Michigan State when he took over for his mentor, George Perlis.
Purdue was not good that year.
Really?
No, they only had 4 wins that year.
Interesting.
They beat a ranked West Virginia team, a Ball State team, a Wisconsin team, and an Indiana team.
Interesting.
And then
so they won the in-state battle.
And had a tie against Michigan State. So, yeah.
So they weren't a bowl team. Was it Joe Tiller? Was he the coach, or was it someone else? Interesting, because, I mean, I don't associate Mike Allstott with Joe Tiller because you forget that
Jim Coletto.
Oh, so it was Coletto. That was
Coletto.
So that was even before Joe Tiller.
Yeah, that was pre-Joe Tiller. That was Jim Coletto.
Tiller. Man, because trust me, with Mike Allstott, you're 3 yards in a cloud of dust. It's completely different when they went to Joe Tiller and spread everything all around, and that's how he was able to kind of make a run in the Big Ten. Because I believe Joe Tiller had been at Wyoming when he came to Michigan or Purdue, pardon me, and again he was a wide open guy, man. I mean, you would think coming from Wyoming he would have been cold weather, running the ball, but no, I mean, Joe Tiller was always a guy that believed in throwing the football.
All right, 256-576-4977. You can join the program if you would like. And Joe Tiller, by the way, arrived in Purdue in 1997.
2 years later.
That's when he got to Purdue. Yeah, and by the way, Purdue was not very good.
Yeah.
But he did not have a losing season at Purdue until 2005 and 2008. And Purdue was pretty much a doormat of the Big Ten at the time. I mean, they were not very good.
No.
But then, obviously, when you get a cat like Drew Brees,
it changes a lot.
It does change, yeah.
Yep.
All right, Bama Bino is with us this morning. Good morning, Bama Bino.
Hey, guys.
Morning.
I remember some of the people kicking the name around, 8 or 9, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago about Saban being the greatest of all time. And I was just a Barry Bryant guy, and I said, oh, no way, Brian will never be surpassed there. You know, and then Saban just kept on hammering and hammering, and I'll agree, you know, he is the all-time great, but it doesn't overshadow Bryant, really, because, you know, Saban is about 5 plays away from having 10 national championships.
That's true.
He should, you know, the pick play that's illegal anywhere unless you have West Coast officials, and they'd already done it once. I don't know. Jackson was on the sideline over there. You know, he was in sweatpants because he got hurt. He was saying, pick, pick, pick. So, you know, they're going to run that same play again. It's a rub. It's interference, really. But, so really he's 4 or 5 plays away from being 10 or 11 national championships. Of course, Bryant won 6, and in 66 they snubbed us for a tie with Michigan State and Notre Dame.
They did.
And
77 was another near miss, too.
Civil rights.
Yeah.
Civil rights. 77, too. But
yeah, that's right.
The civil rights thing probably affected that. The West Coast didn't vote for it. And Bryant was not to blame for anything going on with George Wallace.
No.
But, I mean, you know, how can you match that? You know, like I say, anybody that pays attention, you know, 7 is enough to really hang your hat on, but 10, easily, if the wind blew different, it would have been 10. Because that's what he told somebody on the airplane one time. Somebody sitting by him, you know, bragging on his career, and he said, "But yeah, you know, that's not what I focus on. Look at what we should have done, or it was just right there." You know, he worried about the ones that he should have had. But
right,
great show, guys, and I just hope they fix college football because people's losing interest with all of this me stuff.
I got you. Appreciate it, Bama Bina.
It's going there if we don't fix it. Love you guys.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. And to Bama Bino's point, and a lot of people are asking, why did it happen? Only 17.8 million people tuned in to watch Penn State and Notre Dame on a Thursday for the college football semifinals. Alabama had like 28 or 25 million last year for their semifinal game between Alabama and Michigan.
Program. That's why.
And some are saying it was simply because it was played on a Thursday. That was the reason.
Part of it, but it's also Alabama, the greatest program of all time. Notre Dame hadn't won anything since there was VHS tapes, and hopefully Ohio State will help us with that because I can't take anymore. Because if those maggots win one, they're going to act like they're the greatest thing since sliced bread, and they're fixing to win 10 in a row. So just put them out of their misery, beat the hell out of them, and win a national championship, Ohio State. And Ryan Day, get you a job for life, because then they'll never fire you. You understand? Never. If you win a national championship, you're Ohio State, you're never getting fired. Unless the only way you're going to get fired is if or pushed out is if you lose control of the program. Because really, that's what happened to both Urban Meyer and Jim Tressel.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest with you, they didn't want either one of them to leave, and that wasn't the ideal.
No.
But both of them kind of lost control of the program off the field, but still.
And Urban burnt himself out.
Yeah, well, Herb always did that. But, Ryan Day, if he wins this game. Now, Ryan Day could go to the NFL. That would be the funniest part. I mean, he could solve this riddle, win the national title, and then say adios, and then go coach the Bears. But
there was reports that Marcus Freeman the Bears were wanting to interview Marcus Freeman for the head coaching job.
Yeah, and I think they've already interviewed Matt Campbell of Iowa State.
Yeah, well, they can have him.
They're covering their bases.
No, they are.
Do I think either one of them? I'm talking about Marcus Freeman or Ryan Day is going to go to the. No, just like before Sark and before they lost to Ohio State, there was tons of buzz about Sark going to the NFL. Do I believe that's going to happen? No. So, now again,
your thoughts though on that Ohio State.
It went about
Texas
like I thought. Texas played them tough.
Yeah.
I knew they would. I just thought, and I think he's a brilliant play caller. I thought for the most of the game, he did a really nice job on the wheel routes and then the backs and really catching Ohio State off guard with the running backs in the passing game. But when you get to the 1-yard line,
thank you.
I just don't think you need to be running wide. I don't think you need to be trying to trick people.
When you're on the one, just keep going forward.
I think you need to attack the middle or slant it just a little bit. Now, I could have seen them faking the pitch and then maybe running the quarterback like Arch Manning, or maybe having a split backfield and having another back carry it. But I was really surprised when they tried to go wide. I was just like, that's just a low percentage play. Ohio State, we all know the stats. They were very, very good against the run, especially in the red zone. But I just kind of thought Texas, either that or play action it and throw it like to a tight end or a wide receiver. I just felt like that particular play call there. And I love Sark, and I got into it I know you're shocked at this. I got into it with idiots on it. Well, Lane Kiffin should have been the coach at Alabama. That's who should be the coach. That's who they should have hired. And I was like, I would take Sark.
How did that get into the whole Sark thing?
Because Sark and Lane are always compared because they both were OCs at Alabama.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And people are still complaining about DeBoer and decision-making.
By the way, that was 1 year ago, I believe, yesterday that Kalen DeBoer officially.
But the bottom line is, like I told the guy, I would take Sark over Kiffin 10 out of 10 times.
Right.
I mean, Sark's been to the last 2 playoffs. What in the hell has Lane ever done? He had the most talented roster in the SEC this year. I truly believe that. I know it was Ole Miss, but I truly believe when they were focused, when they played together and cohesive, they were the best team, but they didn't even get to the playoff because they choked against Kentucky. So they didn't get in. They might have had a chance to make a run like Ohio State's making. I mean, if Jackson Dart don't go brain dead, but Jackson Dart had that tendency. But still, I mean, I just felt like I would take Sark 10 out of 10 times. But I've been critical of Lane Kiffin and choking in games, and he's done it a million times. I felt like and again, I'm not even saying that. I still think Ohio State probably wins the game. But at that point in time, it's 21-14.
No, I agree with you on that.
You've got a chance to tie the game. But Ohio State, Jack Sawyer, he gets the scoop and score. And
because you're behind the chains, then you have to do something a little different. You're not on the 1 yard line.
Right.
You have to do something a little different. And Ohio State's pressure had gotten to Quinn Ewers quite a bit all game. I mean, that was one of the things.
I thought Ewers up until the strip sack, though. I thought, and then I know he threw an interception later to kind of seal it. I thought he had played pretty solid up to that point. But again, I thought
the Texas defense did well,
and they did.
I mean, they got
a rough start. First possession, rough. They did. But I thought they settled in after that, and they made
screen
Ohio
pass
State
towards the end of the first half was like,
and that was bad. But I thought they punched there, just like I thought they would. I thought they played well. They played physical.
Yeah.
But Ohio State's just the better team. And
I thought that was your national championship game.
Yeah, to me, Ohio State by 17.
Yeah, I don't see. Yeah.
Death taxes in Ohio State. Goodbye, Notre Dame.
All right, let's get our first break in. 256-576-4977. You can join us. If you want to talk more college football, you can, but we'll slip in some college basketball as well. It's Talking Ball. We're live from Bill Penny Toyota on a Monday.
It's time to get your family into boating. The Huntsville Boat Show is back January 16th through the 19th at BBC. Shop, compare, and save thousands on your family's dream boat. Hundreds of new boats to purchase on site. Shop pontoons, wake surf boats, fishing boats, and more. Visit HuntsvilleBoatShow.com.
It's off the board now. Still showing 231 in Armand Road in Lacey. That one should be ready to go within the next few minutes. D&L Refrigeration repairs heating and air conditioning units for homes and businesses. Ask about military, law enforcement, and senior discounts at D&L 256-652-1207. State license 08091. Captain Nick in the Valley Skywatch Traffic Center.
If hunting and outdoor recreation are your passions, it all starts with the right property. That's where I come in. I am Bo Butler with Southland Realty and Auction, a hunting and recreational land specialist and a Jackson County native who sees land through a hunter's eyes. Just as you trust your guide on a big game hunt, you can trust me to find the perfect property for you. Thinking of selling? Let me help you make your land attract buyers. Remember, Bo knows land. Call me at 256-609-0512.
Orthopedics. You're thinking bones, muscles, and joints, right? Well, what else comes to mind? Maybe your spine, therapy, or an arm cast? What about sports medicine? What do you think about when you hear that? Are you thinking about the largest orthopedic group in the state, caring for the most student athletes in North Alabama? Or about the fact that they are teamed up with the state's largest hospital-based sports medicine program to provide care to more schools in North Alabama than any other group? If you are, you have TOC Sports and Huntsville Hospital Sports Center on the brain. If you're not, you should, because Huntsville Hospital Sports Center and TOC Sports have partnered for more than 2 decades to establish a state-of-the-art team of certified athletic trainers and orthopedic specialists who successfully continue to meet and exceed the sports medicine needs of schools, athletes, coaches, and parents in our community. Committing to kids, committing to community, committing to care. That's Huntsville Hospital Sports Center and TOC Sports.
Hey folks, this is Arthur Seaton, managing partner at University Kia, proudly saying Roll Tide and War Eagle. Stop into University Kia today and shop one of the area's largest selection of new Kias, including Fortes, Seltos, Telluride, and Popular Carnival, and fully electric EV6. View all the great specials at universitykia.com and get pre-approved in minutes so you can drive home your new Kia you really want, because we want to see you in a University Kia.
Want to save some money?
I can take money and I can make it into more money.
Just check out our zone deals online at 977ESPN.com. We are 977 ESPN The Zone.
This speech is my recital. I think it's very vital to rock around. That's right. On time. It's tricky. It's tight. Here we go. It's tricky to rock.
All right, welcome back. 7:23 on a Monday morning. Scott Tyson, Drew DeArmond hanging out inside Bill Penny Toyota Service Department, where they have their doors open, and they opened at 7, just like our show, kicking off at 7 a.m. Bring your cars out here to Bill Penny Toyota and let them get serviced Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and then on Saturday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. All right, so I know there were a lot of anxious Auburn fans yesterday waking up wanting to know the results of Johni Broom's MRI after his ankle injury in the South Carolina game. And good news, Auburn put out a statement, a one-sentence statement yesterday, saying Auburn senior All-American Johni Broom underwent an MRI this morning, which revealed a non-surgical ankle sprain. That's it. They did not put a timetable on his return. He is out indefinitely, but good news is no surgery required for Johni Broom.
Yeah, I saw the injury happen. Cliff Amore actually had the same thing happen to him over at Texas A&M, and he was able to come back. I honestly thought this was Amore's happened, but about 19 minutes and some odd, left in the game in the early second half. I thought he was done for the day, but he toughed it out and came back in. Obviously, it wasn't as severe a sprain as I don't think Johni's was, because people react differently to injuries. But Johni's, I saw it happen. There was over 13 minutes to go. Auburn was in a dogfight. Wow. I mean, now, when I saw the injury happen, the first thing I thought, okay, I don't think it's a break, anything like that. It looks like an ankle sprain. But, you could tell from Johni's body language, Bruce Pearl's, that it was severe. I mean,
right.
It looked like it was going to be a severe ankle sprain. Luckily, no ligaments, things of that nature, because Sarah Ashley Barker, Alabama basketball, she actually tore a ligament in her ankle, and she is out 2 to 4 weeks. I was asked this morning on another show about Johni, how long. I mean, of course, I'm not a doctor. I'm not playing one on TV.
We don't know the severity
we don't
of
know.
it.
My guess, just guesstimation, is because he is extremely important to what Auburn's doing. He's a leading candidate for SEC Player of the Year, first-team All-American, National Player of the Year. He's been unreal this year. You're not going to rush him back because they still have a good team, and that's why they still won the South Carolina game. So, to me, I would say probably 2 weeks is what they'll probably try to do. They'll probably try to tread water for 2 weeks, and they're still capable, because I'll just say this. Watching that last 13 minutes, South Carolina had a few opportunities to extend the lead and maybe get a 2-possession lead, 4 to 5 points, and Auburn's defense was locked down. They did a really good job. Our boy Chaney Johnson, made some plays, made a big 3, had 9 points. a very efficient offensive game. I think he was 4 for 7 from the floor. But the real story, and it's just he's a tremendous freshman, is Tahad Pettiford. Now I know he's not starting.
No,
I've always said this: who cares if you don't start? It's who finishes. And he basically took that game over. They couldn't stay in front of him. He was able to get to the rim, finish. He was also able to set up teammates like Dylan Cardwell for dunks. He did a really nice job. And then he was able to get to the free throw line and convert, and then make a big triple. I thought Tahad Pettiford. It was, and again, our good friend Denver Jones, another kid we really enjoyed watching. He didn't have his best game, and because Tahad was playing so well down the stretch, Denver was on the bench, but you understood because Tahad Pettiford was making things happen. And so Bruce Pearl and his staff did the right thing. They were able to gut it out and win 66-63, and now they got a tough one coming up with Mississippi State coming.
Oh, they do on Tuesday.
Coming to Auburn Arena.
Yeah, and they survived former Alabama player Nick Pringle missing 2 free throws.
Yeah,
there.
It was 9.8 seconds. You're down 1. Pringle attacks the rim. They were fine, I think, with Pringle attacking the rim because A, they didn't think he would finish,
right,
and then B, I know somehow it says he's shooting 70% from the line for
Alabama fans can attest that that's not.
I mean, we can attest, and Alabama fans last year to the miracle that happened against Clemson when he was making free throws, where he got into a little bit of a rhythm because for most of the season it was Clank City. And so, in one game this year, I think he went 10 for 10, which is unbelievable. But he bricked both of them. But here's the thing: he had a chance to get the offensive rebound. He read it off the rim perfectly.
He did. And the ball kind of rolls around on the floor.
What have I told you about Nick Pringle? He's got skill at hands. It bounced right off his hands, and by the time he was able to get the ball under control, it was a jump ball, and Auburn had the possession arrow.
Yep.
So Auburn made the plays they had to make. They survived, and I give Brian Matthews credit. We had him on Friday. He said, this is not going to be the same kind of game. I got a feeling that Alabama and South Carolina, Alabama basically whacked South Carolina and blew them out. He's like, they're going to be mad. They're going to be desperate.
Were. Well, they had a lot of.
And they played their best game.
I mean, they had a lot of people there. Don Staley was there, fired up.
Shane Beamer was
there. I mean, it was a different environment. Yeah, it was a little different. I mean, South Carolina, they did not want to start 0-3 in league play.
Unlike Arkansas.
And then, boy, oh boy, there's a lot to unpack with that one. Because I have a question to ask with that one.
Yeah.
But there was the first ever, and it's hard to say, and even Buzz Williams didn't even know how to react to this.
Yeah.
First ever top 10 matchup for Texas A&M.
And you know who had that little nugget? Of course, it was in the press conference. While I watched it, it was our good friend Brett Zvorneman. Of course.
Is that who? Okay.
Yeah, he's like, Brett, is this true? He was looking at
first ever
notes.
top 10 matchup in Texas A&M basketball history there in College Station as Alabama and Texas A&M went at it, and Alabama
for
fortunate
3 friggin' hours.
Yeah,
I mean, it was a foul fest, man.
Was it the old referees injecting themselves, or was the play just that physical?
It was physical.
Yeah.
But I also thought there was way too many whistles. I mean, there were some that they probably could have swallowed, just let them play.
Yeah.
But it was, the only thing I'll give credit to the refs about, I said it was poorly officiated, but a lot of times when you say that, it's one team gets all the calls. Now, that's not what I'm saying in this case. I'm just saying that they called it on both ends.
Yes.
And that's why the friggin' game lasted 3 hours. I mean, Scott, this game almost lasted as long as a football game.
Nate Oates made reference to that, yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable. It's probably the longest non-overtime college basketball game that I've ever watched. It didn't even go into overtime. As Corey Alexander said doing the color, he said, there ain't going to be nothing open by the time we get out of here, probably not even our hotel restaurant. Because they were talking about having dinner, and they're like, geez, it's going to be late.
Oh, Mark Sears did have a game-high 27 points, 9 of 10 from the free throw line was Mark Sears.
He took a minute to get going, too. For most of the half, he over 10 minutes, he was scoreless. But once he got it going, and the thing about Sears, as you see, he gets to the free throw line. He was 9 of 10.
Yeah.
He finds ways to put the ball in the basket.
You mentioned those fouls, by the way.
Oh.
There were they combined. The teams combined for 58 fouls, and I got to make sure I get this right. 88 free throw attempts. 88. Alabama had 40. Texas A&M had 48.
Yes. In one game. I mean, I could just see you and Steve doing a game like that. I mean,
no.
Oh, no. Like
88.
I could just see Steve being apoplectic. It's another foul, of course. I mean,
Good gosh almighty.
Yeah, it was unreal.
Tide finished with 24 offensive rebounds. The Aggies had 23 offensive rebounds.
Yeah, and Alabama won the Battle of the Glass, and that's huge against a team like A&M, who's just
54-46.
They're so physical. They go to the glass so hard. And Alabama was able to win that battle 54-46. As you said, Alabama was one of the best rebounding teams in the country. And Alabama's bench was big again. Biz, a.k.a. Aiden Holloway, the transfer from Auburn, he had double figures yet again. DeArmond Reed had 11 off the bench. He did a really nice job. They didn't get as much out of Mo Diabate as they have been, but again, shocker, he was in foul trouble. I mean, he was the first one, I think, to foul out in the ball game. And so,
with 88, with 56 fouls, who wasn't?
Now, Jaron Stevenson got the hard hat for the second straight game for his defense, but my choice would have been Chris Youngblood. He's the transfer from South Florida. He had 14 points, probably had his best scoring game, but he made a lot of tough plays at the end of the game, getting loose balls, protecting the basketball, able to, he had a big 3-point play in the second half in transition off a steal. He seems to be getting more and more comfortable. I mean, Aiden Sherrill, he played 5 minutes, Scott, and I think he had 4 fouls. I mean, how do you commit 4 fouls in 5 minutes?
By checking in.
That's basically with these refs. That's what it was.
You checked in. They were going to give you a foul when you stepped on the court.
And so it was Don Daly's crew, and it was horrendous. There was no rhythm to it because there was just one whistle after another, and you were just at the free throw line the entire game. And luckily for Alabama, the Aggies really struggled from the line. They were horrendous. They missed 20 free throws. They were 28 of 48. Alabama missed 13. They were 27 of 40, as you already mentioned. Both teams didn't really shoot free throws all that well, but it was a really poor game from the Aggies. And Alabama was able to make 13 threes. It shot the three, especially in the first half, pretty well. And it wasn't a Picasso by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a tough, gritty win against a good team in Texas A&M that I think is going to be, in the 5-6 seed range. And right now it's in the top 10 of the country. We'll certainly see if they stay there. And they didn't have Wade Taylor, but I told people beware of that because I had already seen them come back from an 18-point deficit at Oklahoma and win without Wade Taylor.
Right.
So they're a tough-minded group and really love Buzz Williams. And he had some heavy praise for Alabama after the game. He said they've got NBA players coming off their bench. And then he said, and they've got a coach who I think is a future NBA coach. And I hope that's not true. But still, I mean, Buzz just telling the truth about how the game went. And, again, it's anytime you win there. And I believe of the original SEC, and what I mean by original is when Nate Oates got there because they've added Texas and OU.
Yeah.
He has now won on the road at every arena. Now, we'll see. He has not won at Texas. He has not won at Oklahoma before while they've been in the league. So, and they've got the Yum Center now, or is that Louisville?
Louisville's is Yum Center.
I'm sorry.
Louisville's
I can't remember what they call Texas's now. But
I forget. It's got a name to it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got like a
Texas has got a new arena.
Yeah.
But Alabama has not won there, and they have not won at OU. So matter of fact, when they've had the SEC, Big 12 challenges in the past, Alabama has lost at Oklahoma, but it is what it is. Now they're in the SEC.
Alabama does not get to Texas A&M for basketball before a lot. They've not been to College Station a lot.
Yep.
And so those 94 points they scored on Saturday, the most in program history at College Station, it broke the previous high of 74 during the 91-92 season. So, but keep in mind, Alabama has not been to College Station a lot to play basketball. All right, let's get a break in. When we get back, Jeff from the Borough will go out to the phone lines. We'll get you in, plus the John Calipari question that I got to ask you coming up next. It's Talking Ball 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
From the Fox 54 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Emily Owen. Below freezing temperatures continue for this Monday night. Lows will be falling into the lower 20s across the Tennessee Valley. We'll sit under a mostly clear sky. Heading into our Tuesday, expect to see plenty of sunshine. Still going to be chilly heading into the afternoon. High temperatures are expected to warm into the lower 40s. No rain in the forecast until we get to about Friday. I'm Fox 54 meteorologist Emily Owen on your home for ESPN Radio 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Just got a report of a hit-and-run accident eastbound 565 right about Greenbrier. Looking at that area, though, I don't see anything blocked up. Traffic appears to be moving there. Everything else accident-wise should be out of the way. You be careful on your trip in. Do your methods to lose weight no longer work for you? 7 different hormones can make it impossible for you to lose weight. Find out with a free quiz at 2030huntsville.com. Captain Nick in the Valley Skywatch Traffic Center.
It's bowl season on ESPN Radio, including the college football playoff and national championship game.
The electricity, the atmosphere.
The Notre Dame Fighting Irish, the Ohio State Buckeyes, the college football playoff national championship, presented by AT&T. Coverage begins Monday, January 20th at 6:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN.
It's the beauty of college football.
97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Mike Rowe here with a quick question. Have you noticed the musty smell in your home? I hope not, because damp smells mean that you could have a crawl space problem. That's where AFS comes in, a groundworks company. They can honestly assess your situation and create a plan to waterproof your crawl space and get to the root cause of the problem. Schedule your free inspection at afsrepair.com/row. And while you're there, check out my latest dirty job. It's a good one.
Licensed in all states where work is performed. See website for details.
When you call most roofing companies, all you'll hear is, you need a new roof. Not when you call Fleming. At Fleming Roofing and Restoration, we're focused on your needs, whether it's an easy repair or a full roof replacement. Folks around here have trusted Fleming since 1965 for all their residential and commercial roofing needs. And as the area's storm damage experts, Fleming knows all the ins and outs of the insurance claims process. Log on FlemingHSV.com to schedule your free estimate today. Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We show up.
Welcome back. Talking Ball 97.7 ESPN The Zone on a Monday morning. We are back and we are live. You look at the SEC standings right now, and we were talking about these during the break. If you look at them, you got 3 teams sitting atop the league at 3-0, Auburn, Alabama, and Ole Miss. And the good news is Alabama and Ole Miss are going to face each other, so you're going to get another monster matchup in the league.
Should be there Tuesday night. That's going to be a 6 o'clock tip and should be a sellout on a Tuesday. I'd be surprised if it's not, with all that's at stake. And Chris Beard, I mean, just doing a well of a job.
Both teams are 14-2. Yeah. They've gotten there in different ways, but both teams are 14-2.
Well, I mean, it's going to be interesting, and sorry, Ole Miss, but everybody always asks us about Alabama and Nate Oates, but can Ole Miss hold on to Chris Beard now that, he's getting himself back out there and building this Ole Miss program up? I mean, Ole Miss does have a great facility, and, they put more money into basketball, but we all know in an ideal world that Beard would still be at Texas.
Yep.
And we know what all happened, and that's how he ended up at Ole Miss, so this will be really interesting to watch.
All right, let's get a phone call in or two. Let's get Jeff from the Borough in. Good morning, Jeff.
Morning.
How's it going, guys? Scott, do you know what the ratings were for Friday night's game?
I've not seen the numbers for Friday night.
This guy, they were talking about it up here Thursday and Friday, Thursday especially. If people aren't watching now, they're not ever going to watch because most of the country was snowed in. they could do.
No, that's a good point. I mean, especially in the South, and Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, in those areas. Yeah, I mean, I would expect Friday night's ratings to be higher.
Yeah, and then one guy was saying that he's a coach, and he said he didn't really care who wins because he thinks it's too long. Like if you go to the championship game, you're playing 16 games. He goes, I don't care who wins. He didn't even want to really watch. He played in the NFL. He didn't really want. He said the season's too long. Well, of course, guy they were talking about said, of course, they're not going to go back. Like he was talking about going back to 8. They're not going to do that. They're not going to go down.
Right.
12. They're not going to do that. So I mean, as far as that goes, but I think they're going to extend it so long that basketball ain't going backwards. I don't know, but that's just January 20 is just too long. That's just the way it is. But it don't. I think it's going to be a good game myself. Ohio State, Notre Dame's team of destiny. That quarterback goes out, that backup comes in, does what he does, and they get the field goal. So you got to give them credit. The Bears want to talk to them. I wouldn't even fool with the Bears if I was Freeman. I wouldn't even talk to them.
Agreed.
I wouldn't even mess with them. I'm a Bears fan. I wouldn't even mess with the Bears. I wouldn't even, especially if he wins next Monday night. Ain't got nothing to worry about. He'd be on easy street, so ain't got nothing to worry about.
I agree with that.
Wins next Monday night, but and everything. And as far as SEC goes, it started out pretty good, but Kentucky should be 1-2 right now. If Florida makes free throws, they miss 13 free throws. It's Kentucky, they make free throws. How many A&M miss Saturday?
20. 20. We talked about that. Yep.
But if they make theirs,
and Alabama missed 13. Neither one of them shot them very well.
Neither one of them made free throws. But if they make them, it's of course a lot more points. But if Florida makes them, they beat Kentucky. So Kentucky ain't playing that well. They had 15 came off the bench. Hit a few threes late, but they're not playing that good right now. A&M's okay. They got them at home, so I think they'll beat A&M and of course Alabama Saturday. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But it'll be interesting. But I tell you what, my alma mater's doing pretty well. They beat Jack State this weekend at 3-1 in the league, and Nick McDavid's doing well after Davis left. So I hope he can keep it up. Of course, the women's still rolling too. So everything's going pretty good up here. But enjoy the show, guys. Have a good week. See you.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, he's. I have not seen the numbers yet for.
I'm sure
Fridays,
they were good.
but
I watched.
But Texas and Ohio State is more of an appealing matchup. It's more of your bigger time. No disrespect to Penn State and Notre Dame, but
they're both. It's two blue blood matchups, but I think everybody was anticipating Texas and Ohio State.
There was more intrigue with that
because of the offensive firepower, and Ohio State had been mauling everybody. But Texas played them tough. Fell short. SEC not going to win the national championship for 2 years in a row. Wow, 2 whole years. I heard.
There's people piling on that again.
I was sent, a post from a message board that covers the University of Alabama, and one of the beat writers was telling their fans on their board, well, how can Alabama sell to the kids that are they're recruiting that if you come here, you're going to leave with a national championship? Because now that John Marion Latham's come back, he's the last guy from the 2020 team. Alabama hadn't won a national championship Scott in 4 whole years. Wow, what a disaster.
Might as well just do away with the program.
Yeah, it's only the most storied program in the history of the sport. Like I said, if Notre Dame doesn't win this game coming up a week from today, they're closing in on 40 years. 40. 4-0. Come on, Ohio State. End this misery. We don't need those peckerheads to win a national championship. A bunch of maggots robbed Alabama of 3 or 4 that they should have already had with the Yankee media.
Oh, let's get Brandon in. Good morning, Brandon.
Morning, guys. Wanted to say, y'all were talking about the amount of fouls. Y'all remember that Auburn-Alabama game last year that was like 80 fouls? There was one like 85 or 90 free throws from it.
I don't even think it was 3 hours. This thing was nearly 3 hours. It was unreal.
I don't know how you
like
have
a football
that many
game.
more. I don't know how you have that many more fouls, and then this game took longer because I remember Roger Hoover saying that they were waiting on a man to go over the top rope every minute, like the Royal Rumble, and he was taking those shots. And I mean, at what point as referees do you look at each other and be like, "We've called 50 fouls"?
I don't think they keep up with how many fouls they call. Well, then you also have to put up with all the reviews. Okay, is this a flagrant one?
Oh my gosh!
You know, how much time's supposed to be on the clock? You're just a couple times I just yelled at the TV and said, "Get the game going!" You know what I'm saying? I mean, what is everybody just standing around for?
Because you got to review everything.
Yeah,
everything.
It's just like, good Lord.
I've held the chains of high school games, and these high school coaches will be like, "Y'all called 14 penalties. I mean, what's the magic number for rating these officials?" And I've had the officials tell them, "Well, I'll call one more, and you won't have to worry about it. Otherwise, I'll eject you." So I've been there for that. And I was out with some people from Barry this weekend, and one of my friends said, "There are friends with Mick Hedgepeth, aren't they?" And I said, "Yeah." They was like, "Well, when are they going to get Barry on the schedule?" And I was like, "Barry or Barry?" And they're like, "Barry College." And I said,
"That's where he came from." Yeah.
I said, "Scott's all about coming to Rome for some food." I said, so he might be able to slide in there and talk to Mick about getting Barry on the schedule, being that Shorter went the way of the dodo.
Yeah, I don't know if they will do that. Because I believe Barry's Division III.
And I don't think that Lenny ever played him, did he?
No, I don't think so.
Well,
yeah.
Now, you could see that in an exhibition type game maybe, but I don't know that UAH will play
maybe
him
like a
I was about to say, because y'all never seen the 30,000 acres that is Barry College, have you?
Oh, I've heard it's beautiful over there, man.
Yeah.
Oh,
but you know, it was so funny because we were coming back from Memphis last week.
Yeah.
We were on the bus and we got to talking, and Coach Hedgepeth, we got to talking about food or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was the assistant coaches and Steve and we were talking about food. And Steve and I did say I said the favorite road trip for us was when we went to Rome.
Yeah.
And we got to mention some John Hendry's and the Sweet Barn.
Yeah.
And threw that out there.
Yeah.
And coaches was like, "Oh yes, the Sweet Barn.
Yeah.
Oh yeah." So he is well aware of those places over in Rome.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, you might be amazed what a man is scheduled for a 40-ounce porterhouse.
You never know.
Wow.
You never know.
And got a couple guys over here that are officials. We were having a conversation about illegal hands to the face.
Oh, yeah.
And I told him, I said, I love Derrick Henry. If you had a defender go in and put hands on the face of a quarterback and knock his head back, even if you don't grab the face mask, they can get you for illegal hands to the face. But a running back can stiff arm a secondary player. And I love how rules in football are not equal. You can get away with certain things depending on what position you're at. So I was like, at what point are we going to make illegal hands to the face illegal for everybody? And I kind of got stared at him for a second like I was stupid or like I was an alien. I said, but think about it. You can't use hands to the face depending on what position you're at. And I was like, so either everybody needs to be able to put hands to the face or nobody. I said, I understand putting your hand under the face mask and pushing a player's head backwards. I get that. To me, that is a face mask because you're using the face mask. But at what point is illegal hands to the face going to be called evenly for every position on the field?
Well, I don't know. It's the same way with targeting.
Yeah, targeting.
It's the same way with targeting. Defenders get called for targeting, but lots of times, too, your offense players could easily, if they wanted to, could be called for targeting as well.
And calling a unsportsmanlike conduct penalty in a game that big for pointing at somebody is just weak.
I thought at that time it was, because I thought during that game there were several moments where other players were getting up and doing certain motions that you probably could throw the flag at. And I don't know why they decided to call it on that particular moment. Now, it doesn't matter. I mean, Texas was able to overcome it and get the ball down to the 1 anyway. And ultimately, that play did not decide anything. But I agree, though. At that moment, I don't know why you throw it.
I just don't understand why it's as many yards as it is. Like, I understand maybe you need a penalty and maybe you need a 5-yard.
It being a 5-yard penalty
but
instead of a 15. Yeah.
Yeah, because a 15-yard penalty completely changes everything. A 5-yard,
automatic
or
first down.
if you get a second one in the game, then it's 15 yards.
Yeah.
But 5 yards is enough to be like, hey, knock it off.
I guess they're just trying. I guess they're just trying to eliminate the fact of players doing the taunting or something like that. But I agree. At that particular moment in the game, I don't think it was anything egregious. I mean, it was just a simple point. But I don't think it was much. All right, Brandon, thanks for the phone call.
Appreciate it.
7:51. Let's get a break in. When we come back, we'll finish up hour 1 with some more phone calls. It's Talking Ball 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Had a report of a hit-and-run accident eastbound 565 about mile marker 3. That puts it at Greenbrier. I'm looking at that area. I don't see any slowdown at all. Picked up a new accident in Jackson County, 35 southbound at Long Hollow Road. That's in Scottsboro. And we've got Research Park southbound at Madison Pike, or Old Madison Pike. Maybe a little slow through that area. Expert heart care backed by advanced technology. When you need cardiac care, you need the heart doctor. Dr. Randall Burns and the team at Huntsville Heart Specialist, Bob Wallace Avenue. Captain Nick in the Valley Skywatch Traffic Center.
By now, you know about Eagle Masonry and Insulation, and maybe you know that Eagle also does landscaping and dirt work. But how about after paint work? Shower doors, shelving, and mirrors, all taken care of by Eagle, the same Eagle that takes care of all your masonry, insulation, and landscaping needs. Eagle brings the same level of expertise to all these disciplines, and they're ready to provide you with a free quote. The website is the same, insulatewitheagle.com, as is the phone number, 256-755-1556. Give them a call and see what Eagle can do for you. Eagle saves you time. Eagle saves you money.
It's time to get your family into boating. The Huntsville Boat Show is back January 16th through the 19th at VBC. Shop, compare, and save thousands on your family's dream boat. Hundreds of new boats to purchase on site. Shop pontoons, wake surf boats, fishing boats, and more. Visit HuntsvilleBoatShow.com.
I'm Al Roker, and here's what's happening in your neck of the woods. Americans are boating responsibly. They know that on average, 2 people lose their lives and 9 are injured in recreational boating accidents every day. So they're wearing their life jackets, taking safe boating courses, leaving the alcohol on the dock, and of course, always checking the weather. You can learn more at www.uscgboating.org. The U.S. Coast Guard and I remind you, please boat responsibly.
It's time to get your family into boating. The Huntsville Boat Show is back January 16th through the 19th at VBC. Shop, compare, and save thousands on your family's dream boat. Hundreds of new boats to purchase on site. Shop pontoons, wake surf boats, fishing boats, and more. Visit HuntsvilleBoatShow.com.
Let's get out to the phone lines out of the break. Let's get Richard in real fast on a Monday. Good morning, Richard.
Morning, Richard.
Morning, guys. Drew, actually, all Alabama games are sellouts. I think Kent State was the only one that didn't sell out.
Oh, really?
They're all.
I
Yeah,
figured it was.
A couple of them during Christmas time, they sold out. Like Oklahoma sold out later on because the students weren't there, and South Dakota State, but. Basically every game, but those 2 or 3 were sold out before the season even started.
Yeah,
whether people come or not are 2 different things.
Right, because I know there were some empty seats. I mean, it was still a great, energetic crowd for Oklahoma, but there were some empty seats in Coleman in that game.
Tell you what, you're talking about the game on Saturday. I'm a big college fan and wanted to watch the Alabama game in Kentucky. Started at 7:30, and I was going, man, this will be great. I'll catch the last 8 minutes of the Kentucky-Mississippi State game, but it ended before the Bama game, which started at 7.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was doing the same thing. I was trying to follow both games, and I thought I'd do the same thing I would watch the end of Kentucky-Mississippi State, but it became painfully obvious that Kentucky-Mississippi State was going to end before Alabama-Texas A&M.
Drew, I got a Duke question for you. So is Cooper Flagg better than the University of Cincinnati?
Well, he outscored him on Saturday, according to what you told me, 42-40.
Jeez.
So
is Anthony Grant coach of Cincinnati? That's what
I'll
I'd
tell you
ask.
what, Kansas only scored. I tell you what, Kansas beat them, but Kansas only scored 54. So.
Oh wow! So it was 54-40.
54-40.
Well, yesterday in the UAH women's game, UAH played Auburn Montgomery.
That's right.
At one point, the UAH bench, the women's bench, outscored Auburn Montgomery at one point in the game.
Did they really?
Yes.
So this was a beatdown, you're telling me?
It was a beatdown yesterday, yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Good job, Alan Sharp and the ladies.
Anyways, you're talking about the football playoffs. I watched, because you were kind of snowed in, or you knew it was going to be snow, so I watched both games. And then you got big fan bases on all four teams, so it's kind of surprising.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm a little surprised that the viewership wasn't more for Penn State, and Notre Dame, especially with the Irish still have that TV contract and still have all those people, that and that huge fan base. But it's interesting. Maybe Scott's right. Maybe it was because it was on Thursday. We really don't know.
I don't know. I mean, because it's never been done that way before. We don't have anything to go back and say, well, you know what, the last Thursday. And that's the thing, though. The Alabama-Michigan game, I believe,
is the one you're talking about.
And that was on a Saturday, right?
Yeah, the Rose Bowl.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a whole different – and it was a different time, too.
And it was a 4-team playoff. It wasn't.
Yes, and we had the semifinals around New Year's Eve or New Year's Day or something like that last year. And so you to compare it, and I did compare it, but to ultimately compare it to that.
Because remember, it's the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, you can't really compare the two and say, well, last year's semifinal and this year's semifinal, because they were played a couple weeks later.
Yeah.
And this one was played on a Thursday. So I guess going forward, if we have those weekday games again, then we'll be able to compare it. I think it would have been worse if they would have went up against an NFL game on that day. If they had played it on Saturday or a Sunday, it would have been worse.
That's what they were gonna. That's what they were trying to avoid.
Yes, and I don't know. And so, Richard, thanks for the phone call, by the way, as well. So, I compared it to that because that's what everybody wanted to compare it to.
I think that's why they did it Thursday and Friday, because Saturday and Sunday is the NFL playoffs, and they don't want to go head up with those.
And this is the first time the college football has played this late. I mean, we talked about it last week. So,
and then today will be the last Monday night game. It's our last playoff game, and some of that had to do with the wildfires, things of that nature.
All right, let's get a break in. Hour one done. Hour two will be on the horizon. We got more conversation coming for you. Coming up next, Tony Sakalas.
This is Brent Musburger's VSiN Action Update on 97.7 ESPN The Zone. For a limited time, G-Bank is offering a $250 bonus when you open a G-Bank Visa signature card. Apply today at vsin.com/GBank.
Little over a month away from the Daytona 500, the Great American Race coming up February the 16th. Kyle Busch and Brad Keselowski, 12-1 co-favorites. Ryan Blaney is 13-1. Auburn hosting Mississippi State tomorrow at SEC basketball. The Tigers are plus 650 to second choice to win the NCAA title, behind the Duke Blue Devils at plus 550. And the Tigers are the favorite to win the SEC regular season crown at plus 175. Auburn and Mississippi State tomorrow. Alabama 3-1 to win the SEC regular season title, hosting the Ole Miss Rebels tomorrow at the Coleman Coliseum. For more, go to VSIN.com.
WCZN, Union Grove, Huntsville, Alabama. 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
SportsMed is the official team physicians of the Rocket City Trash Pandas. And if the pros trust SportsMed, you can too. SportsMed provides every service you might need for complete orthopedic care, specializing in orthopedic surgery, sports medicine, joint replacement, spine surgery, neurosurgery, and podiatry. And they offer their own brace shop, in-house full-body MRI, physical therapy, walk-in clinic, and so much more. 4 locations and on the web at sportsmedalabama.com.
This hour brought to you by SportsMed Orthopedic and Spine Center. Online at sportsmedalabama.com. Welcome to Talkin' Ball with Scott Tyson and Drew DeArmond. Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline now, 256-576-4977. That's 256-576-4977. Now, here's Scott and Drew.
There you go. Hour 2. Talking Ball, 97.7 ESPN, The Zone. Scott Tyson, Drew DeArmond is officially underway. And big thank you to SportsMed Orthopedic Surgery and Spine Center. They've been dedicated to providing care that's been improving lives, and they can do the same for you. 256-881-5151. Please give the SportsMed people a try over there. We'll talk more about all of that coming up later as well. But we talked a little bit about the Alabama-Texas A&M basketball game, and we talked a lot about the foul calls. We talked about the big win for Alabama on the road, which sets up another gigantic game on Tuesday, tomorrow night, in Tuscaloosa. And when we're talking SEC basketball this year, we're going to say gigantic matchup a lot because it is the premier basketball conference right now in America. And then also, we mentioned briefly, that yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of Kalen DeBoer touching down in Tuscaloosa to become the new head coach at Alabama. And we fast forward a year, 1 year's in the books, and a lot of people coming in, coming out still via the transfer portal. No one coming out because that's closed, but coming in, yes. And a lot of things happening.
Yeah, there is a lot of things happening, no question about it. Basketball is, a huge part of this right now for the University of Alabama and our state, with what Auburn very likely ascending to number 1, Alabama being entrenched in the top 5. I'm not sure. I don't ever remember that happening in the history of this state. And again, South Alabama's having a really good year. They've got a really good basketball team. We know what Bucky McMillan and Samford have been doing as far as having a really good season. So it's a special time.
I think they've won 28 in a row now at home, or 29 in a row. It's a record for Samford.
Yeah, man. He's Bucky McMillan has just done remarkable things there, making it one of the toughest mid-major places to play in the country. But right now we're going to talk some Alabama with our next guest. He does a great job as the managing editor for Tide Illustrated, which is part of Rivals.com. He does a great job covering Alabama athletics. Of course, he covered this first year under Kalen DeBoer. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about his column on basketball, where this Alabama basketball team, which came in with so much hype and expectation, got off to a little bit of a slow start, but seems to be hitting their stride. And we're going to talk about all that with Tony Tsoukalis, who's been kind enough to join us for a few minutes this morning on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline. Tony, good morning. You're with Drew and Scott. How are you?
Hey, guys. Good morning.
Hey, man. Thank you for joining us. Quickly, it's been quite a whirlwind. I don't know how you're thinking about it, but when I realized it was a calendar year this weekend since Kalen DeBoer was announced. We were all at the press conference when he was introduced as Alabama's next football coach. It seems like that was 2 or 3 years ago. This season seemed to take a long time.
Yes,
it was an arduous process. But what are your thoughts on year 1 under Kalen DeBoer?
It's hard to kind of wrap it all up because there's points where you thought it was really good and then points where it was really bad. It's been the biggest roller coaster ride of a year that we've experienced in a while. Obviously, it ended on a dip. So when you look back at it from recency, it kind of looks a lot worse than maybe it is. I thought that, the minimum was 10 wins. So I'd have to call this year a failure in my book. But I don't necessarily think the DeBoer, era is doomed or anything like that. I think he was the right decision. I don't think you can, I think this team was too good to not continue that double-digit win streak. Or double-digit winning season streak, rather. So I'd have to go with it, the first year being a little bit underwhelming. That being said, I still think the future is pretty bright. I think I believe in what Kalen DeBoer is doing over there at Alabama, and I think once he gets his team, with his players, I think it's going to be a little bit easier for him. Obviously, it's also hard to just go into the SEC first year, especially when you're following Nick Saban. So he had a lot of things on his plate that are pretty difficult. I'm expecting him to kind of to make some improvements in year two.
And that's the thing. You mentioned Kalen DeBoer's team, his team. Considering, with what was there, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, this was Nick Saban's talent. Nick Saban, the greatest of all time. How can you not win with Nick Saban's talent? But sometimes it's not that easy because systems don't match all the way. Kalen DeBoer's system was a little bit different offensively, and these are part of the growing pains that you have to go through. And if 9 wins is a growing pain, that's not bad in one aspect as well.
Yeah, and Alabama was overly reliant on a quarterback that wasn't a good fit for the offense. Now, granted, Kalen DeBoer made it work as well as, I think you can expect him to, but Jalen Milroe regressed over the last year. He regressed during the season, and then Alabama's offense became so reliant on him, it really became, if he had a bad game, so did the offense. I mean, you look at the Tennessee game, you look at the Oklahoma game, those are games I feel like Alabama should have won, especially with their defensive performance, but the quarterback play wasn't there, and the offense kind of revolved around it and just didn't get anything done. I think I kind of feel like Kalen DeBoer was a little bit handcuffed at that quarterback position, and I think now, with whatever option Alabama goes to the quarterback position, I think it's going to be Ty Simpson. I think it'll be more of a fit for what Kalen DeBoer likes to do. I think he'll open up his offense a little bit more, and I think he won't be as reliant on the quarterback. So even if, let's say a Ty Simpson comes in and struggles or has some growing pains as a new quarterback, I don't think you're going to be that reliant on your quarterback. You're going to be spreading the ball out to different playmakers a little bit more, and you can kind of rely on your skill players more than what Alabama did this past season. So that, I think, to me, is if you're looking for encouragement, that's what I would see heading into year two.
Well, and how do you see obviously the recruiting class, except for Ty Haywood, was held together, and we'll see what Haywood does in February, but certainly I don't think he's expected in the class, but it was the number 2 overall group in the country, high school JUCO, but then they go into the portal. I think it's been a pretty productive portal season. I know they've lost some guys, but you can say that about every school with this climate. You're going to have to manage your roster. But overall, so far in the offseason, I would give a pretty good grade. Everybody that needed to come back has come back for Alabama. They had minimal guys go to the NFL, but I also think it also shows that this roster may not have been as talented as people thought it was before the season began.
Yeah, I mean, the portal haul hasn't had that star player in it, that player that everyone goes, oh, wow.
Jameer Gibbs, yeah. You're right, yeah.
But if you look at it, they haven't really needed to have that guy. Alabama wasn't going to go grab a quarterback from the portal, and it's really hard to find difference makers on the offensive line through the portal. So
it is.
So you look at the defense and everyone that came back, really you just needed depth on defense. You needed to add depth. I think they did that. They added Isaiah Horton at the wide receiver position. I think he's going to come in and be a starter. And, you look at what you have at that wide receiver position with Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard and now Isaiah Horton. You got guys like Cole Adams and Jalen Hale. I mean, so you've got a good unit. I don't think you needed necessarily that marquee star. I mean, obviously nobody really turns down those players, but from the casual observer might call this transfer portal, underwhelming, but I think you're right in the fact that Alabama answered a lot of its needs. I still think that there's room to grow. You probably need depth on the defensive line. think now, especially with the departure of Elijah Pritchett, you need a tackle. I know Alabama is high on the progression of Wilkin Formby, but regardless, I think you need a tackle, preferably before the spring, because Caden Proctor is going to undergo surgery. I don't know what his availability will be like in the spring. So you could be really young at the tackle position in the spring. I know they're not playing games then, but it'd be nice to get another tackle in by then. But I do think you need someone to compete with Wilkin Formby at that tackle position. I like putting Michael Carroll or Cam Dewberry at that guard position. I guess you could put Michael Carroll at the right tackle position and have him compete with Wilkin Formby, but I like him at that guard spot. So I think you'd want I know Jackson Lloyd's good as well, but I think you'd want a more experienced guy to compete with Wilkin Formby at that right tackle spot.
We're talking to Tony Sakalas, the managing editor of Tide Illustrated, part of the Rivals Network. And now we're going to switch to basketball. He had a really good column about Tide Hoops. They get that gutty road win against Texas A&M. Had 2 road wins this past week. Very tough to get in what's maybe the toughest league in college basketball. But it sets up a huge home game tomorrow night against Ole Miss, who's one of the 3 undefeated teams in the league, along with Alabama and Auburn. But it looks like this Crimson Tide team is rounding into form, Tony.
Yeah, and the point I made in my column was I think you could argue that it's the SEC front runner all over again. Alabama, kind of got forgotten about after being the preseason SEC pick by the media. They came in at number 2 overall in the nation in the preseason AP poll, and then they were, I don't want to say underwhelming because they only have 2 losses on the year, but they didn't necessarily play like the number 2 team, and I think people kind of forgot about them. And all the SEC hype went towards Tennessee and Auburn, and Alabama kind of became that 1B in the conference. Yeah. And I don't believe Alabama is 1B. I think they're right up there with the 1As. We saw how Tennessee played last week at Florida. Auburn's going to be without Janai Broome. Maybe not as long as originally feared for Auburn, but they're still going to be without their best player. It's going to be a tough game against Mississippi State this week. It puts Alabama in a situation where I think that they could be the front runner for the SEC. Especially if they go 2-0 this week. And that's a possibility. The way that this Alabama team's playing, I like them at home against Ole Miss. That's going to be a tough game. They win that, it'll be only Alabama and Auburn remaining as undefeated teams in the conference, and then Alabama goes at Kentucky. That'll be tough as well. But I just think with the way Alabama's playing, they're hard to beat because they're not reliant on. They don't have a lot of weaknesses, so they're not really reliant on one thing. Obviously you're going to have Mark Sears carry the team as the star, but he doesn't have to always be the guy. They can score inside. They obviously can hit threes, not as well as maybe we thought, but once again, they don't need to as much because I think that they can go inside. You're getting that inside presence from Cliff Amori, and I think he kind of opens up things for Grant Nelson, although we haven't seen Grant Nelson be great the last 2 games. I think he's, had a much better season because of Cliff Amori. Yeah, you got guys like LeBaron Philon who are coming out and developing into lottery picks. I mean, this is a really exciting Alabama team that I feel like is only getting better and better. Speaking of that, you've got guys like Chris Youngblood who had his best game at Texas A&M. He's a guy that's a co-conference player of the year in the American Conference, and he starts playing like that for Alabama. Watch out.
Yeah, that's the thing. Chris Youngblood's starting to come around. And Tony, I mean, it was going to take a little bit of time to kind of find his spot of what he needed to do, where he needed to be in the rotation. It's only a matter of time, and once he gets used to everything, he's only going to get a little stronger.
Right. I mean, I think for a lot of ways, he's really important. You need somebody to replace that 3-point, presence that you lost with Latrell Wrightsell, but also I think, and first of all, Chris Youngblood can do that. He can be a lights-out shooter. He's been rusty, coming off that injury in his first 2 games. He really hasn't hit his stroke like he normally does. That's encouraging that when that starts to come back, I think that'll be huge for Alabama. On the other side, though, he does a lot of things. He can get rebounds. He plays gritty. He's not just this scorer that is just on the offensive side of the ball. He really commits to that blue collar basketball, and I think he's a perfect Nate Oates guard. And so when you get him clicking, I think you could probably end up inserting him in the starting lineup and going a little bit smaller just because he can be physical. I think you could go with Mark LeBaron and Chris Youngblood, and then probably go Grant and Amori as your two bigs. Maybe sub, Chris Youngblood for Jaron Stevenson. But you got to get that 3-ball stroke back, and I think maybe shake up a little bit more rust. But I think that's probably the future for Alabama, and I just think that makes them even stronger.
Well, and here's the thing too, and now with Youngblood getting healthy and becoming a factor, if this group, his rotation right now, his 10 guys stay healthy, he may be able to be able to strengthen his roster going into next year, because they're going to lose 4 seniors there, and then you have the LeBaron Filons, the Darion Reeds of the world that are going to have decisions to make whether to declare for the NBA draft. But they're planning on trying to bring Latrell Wrightsell back with the Achilles, and now with Houston Millet's situation, I wouldn't blame Nate Oates if they medically redshirted him and try to bring both those guys back for next year.
I think it's only fair for Houston Millett to come back, to medically redshirt. He can't play again because now we're in the second half of the season. So it doesn't even matter about number of games. We're in the second half of the season. So if he plays one game, right, he's out. I think you're right. I think it makes sense to medically redshirt him, both for Millett and for Alabama. I don't think they're going to use him enough this season for, the slight gain of having that extra player this season isn't worth how valuable he could be next season. You talked about losing those guards. You're probably not going to have LeBaron Filon. You're definitely not going to have Mark Sears. I think you'll probably have Aiden Holloway, but, you're going to need more guard depth. You're going to need having 2 experienced guards in Latrell Wrightsell and Houston Millett will be key. And I think I've liked what I've seen from Houston Millett. So he's not just some player that's a nothing player for next year. I think he can be. He might not start. I don't know, but he'd be that. If he doesn't start, I think he'd be like that 6th man for Alabama. He'd be a big guy. So the value is certainly there for next season. I think it makes sense. You're right. It's just to have those 2 guys coming back. They're going to lose a lot of talent from this roster. It's obviously the deepest roster they've ever had. Being able to kind of have 2 guys that you could, count on as veterans is going to be huge.
That's why it's kind of important, I guess, to make another big run with this group while you have them.
Sure. I mean, this is the deepest roster Alabama's had, even without Houston Millett. They don't have a lot of weaknesses, and there's a lot of versatility they can do. Look how much foul trouble they got in against Texas A&M. A lot of times that would sink a team, but Alabama has so much depth they can just keep on putting in player after player, wave after wave, and they're able to kind of overcome situations like that. I think you just got to hope that they stay healthy, because now you are down to 10 players, and it's getting kind of tight. If you had a couple injuries, you would be in a bad position. But I'm pretty encouraged from what I've seen from this roster. I think this is a team that can make another Final Four run because of some of the things I talked about earlier too. I don't think we've seen this team's full ceiling. I mean, when Chris Youngblood starts hitting his 3, and you've got guys that are continuously developing. You talked about Darion Reed earlier. He's another guy that I think keeps on getting better and better. He's a starting caliber player that is coming off the bench for Alabama. Players like that, when they start hitting their stride, it's going to be a really exciting time.
It really is. And Tony, final question. I'll circle back to football because I know on your message board you've probably been asked 6,520 times. But what is your thoughts on Ryan Grubb?
I mean, that would be interesting. It's the only thing I keep on saying is it would be interesting. Look, on paper, it seems like a slam dunk move, but these are people's careers. Nick Sheridan has a big relationship with Kalen DeBoer. There's a trust there. It's not like you can just throw him away necessarily. And I think, to defend Nick Sheridan a little bit too, because I know he's, everybody wants the next biggest thing, and Ryan Grubb is obviously really exciting. We've seen what Kalen DeBoer can do with him as his offensive coordinator. We talked about that lack of fit at the quarterback position, and I think it's almost right to give Nick Sheridan another year. I know I think there's a lot of people on my message board that would be wanting my head right now, but I think, look, he didn't have the ideal fit. He didn't get to join the team. He was kind of thrown into the fire a little bit. I think that, his seat is very hot, but I don't think it's necessarily, something that I wouldn't feel that Alabama's making a mistake necessarily by giving Nick Sheridan another year. I think he could surprise people in year two, especially when he has a quarterback that fits more what he wants to do. Once again, I'm not saying that that Kalen DeBoer or Nick Sheridan can never have a running quarterback. It just doesn't necessarily what Jalen Milroe offered and what he required to be at his full potential kind of handicapped the offense. And I just think that, you put a more traditional pocket passer back there. I'd like to at least see what Nick Sheridan can do.
Well, great stuff, Tony. We appreciate the time. Happy New Year to you. Let everybody know how to follow your work.
Yeah, the site's Tide Illustrator. You can go to TideIllustrated.com or Alabama.rivals.com. Follow us at Tide Illustrated on X, and you can follow me at Tony_Sukalis on X as well.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks, Tony.
Appreciate it.
See ya.
All right, let's get our break in. When we come back, 256-576-4977. Join the program. It's Talking Ball live from Bill Penny Toyota.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
They're showing that wreck in Jackson County, 35 southbound at Long Hollow Road now is being clear. That one had an overturned vehicle with Research Park southbound at Old Madison Pike working, and they're working 67 and Peck Hollow Road in Morgan County. That one's got a vehicle down a ravine. Shoals Scholar Dollars Legends in Concert Series is bringing Grammy Award winner Pam Tillis to UNA on January 26th. Tickets at shoalscholardollars.com. Captain Nick in the Valley Skywatch Traffic Center.
You've got to experience Toyotathon at Bill Penny Toyota. They've got the selection with over 700 new Toyotas to choose from. And they've got the extras with Bill Penny perks and a 10-year unlimited warranty. So get on over to Bill Penny Toyota today and experience Toyotathon. Bill Penny Toyota in Huntsville and online at BillPennyToyota.com. Bill Penny's Toyota 10-year unlimited warranty is valid through the 10th year of ownership. Valid on new vehicles only. See dealer for details.
You'll love the expanded wine selection at Liquor Express. From special occasion to everyday table wines, they've got what you need. Meet your friends at the largest tap wall in Alabama with 105 rotating selections. Then take home a growler full of your favorite or choose from our 1,000 canned or bottled beers. Need help stocking your bar or planning your party? Liquor Express has a knowledgeable professional in-house staff that can assist you with anything from your bar to the planning of your special event. Visit liquorexpress.net for tasting specials, giveaways, and classes.
You don't have to go somewhere else just so you can go somewhere new. Plan your next vacation with Huntsville International Airport and Breeze Airways. Enjoy friendly, convenient, nonstop travel to some of the most exciting destinations in the U.S., including the home of iconic casinos, world-class shows, dining, and entertainment. Las Vegas. With flights starting as low as just $79, Breeze has got you covered with easy, breezy, nonstop flights to Las Vegas. Book nonstop to Las Vegas now at flybreeze.com.
Buckhorn Youth Sports was created in 2018 to provide kids in our community the ability to compete at every sport possible. We offer football, flag and tackle, cheer, volleyball, wrestling, basketball, baseball, and softball. You can find us on Facebook at Buckhorn Youth Sports, where we prepare the future. Buckhorn Youth Sports is a proud supporter of Buckhorn High School football. Go Bucks!
Online at 977ESPN.com.
Stream them online.
Call in.
It's an important job, and it's an vital organization.
Tweet in and join in. We are 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
I want to spend some time with you. Just the two of us. We can make
Talking Ball 97.7 ESPN, The Zone. Scott Tyson, Drew DeArmond. And speaking of loving things, did you see Rick Barnes' comments after the game?
Chaz Lanier, shoot it. That's what we pay you to do.
Yep. I love it that coaches are, and there was a couple other coaches over the weekend that have said the exact same thing, that's what they are telling their players now. And
you're getting paid, perform.
Yep. If that's exactly what they're telling them, and I love it. I hate it.
Be held accountable.
I hate it that's where we're at in college athletics, but
you
it is what it is.
Don't give me
and I love it.
BS about they're 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. You can't criticize them. Shut up. They're getting paid. Be quiet.
Yep. That was the mantra, 3, 4, 5 years ago was that, hey, these are kids on scholarship.
Yeah, maybe
and
a few years back, maybe that argument can be made. You can't make that argument anymore. Shut up and do your job.
And Rick Barnes telling Chaz Lanier yesterday and telling him over the weekend, and look, you're getting paid to
be criticized. I mean, the guy's making $2.5 million. Shut up, do your job, read a defense, make a throw, and quit being a fraud.
All right, let's go out to the phone lines. Jared is with us this morning. Good morning, Jared.
Hey, good morning, fellas.
Morning.
Just wanted to holler at y'all. I know this topic has been worn out already with the Ryan Grubb, Nick Sheridan thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
But here's just a thought. And I know we're talking about Coach Kalen DeBoer and not Coach Nick Saban. But from that perspective of what would Coach Saban do you think that he would have gone ahead and just made what he thought was the best move, regardless of, what former relationships? Like, if he thought Ryan Grubb would potentially provide better services as the OC instead of Nick Sheridan, do you think he would have gone ahead and made that move? Or do you think he would still give Nick Sheridan another shot?
Well, I mean, I think ideally he could have them both on the same staff if he could work all that out. But my whole point is this. I've been convinced that Grubb may get another opportunity in the NFL because people are kind of overlooking the fact that the Seahawks won 10 games. They weren't bad. Now, they didn't do as good a job of running the football, as they wanted to do under Grubb. But again, I've seen OCs. Kellen Moore's a good example. He left Dallas, he left the Chargers, but he's with the Eagles now, and they're still alive in the playoffs. Sark got let go with the Atlanta Falcons, even though I thought for his 2 years they were productive. A lot of it's political, you know what I'm saying? And so it's not about how good a coach you really are. And I just think Nick Sheridan needs to be evaluated without Jalen Milroe. I think they did the best job they could to put Milroe in a position to succeed. Milroe had some bright moments, especially against Georgia, especially against LSU. I thought, against Auburn for part of the game, he played very well. But he just, in that game, he was you saw every side to Milroe because of all his turnovers. He just was very, very difficult to coach, I think. And I don't think you can truly evaluate Nick Sheridan and even Kalen DeBoer until next year. And it's kind of what Tony Sakalas of Tide Illustrated just said, give him a chance to get his guys in there, run his system, and, have a better fit at the quarterback position, which I don't think was Jalen Milroe.
And here's the thing, too, and I know why Alabama fans want Ryan Grubb because he was with Kalen DeBoer. He's been very productive at the time.
You can see
but
why.
Here's the thing. Ryan Grubb has yet to he never called a play, never did anything at Alabama. So how are we to assume that
Well, there's also the point that Saban almost hired him at Alabama, but he stayed at Washington for a raise and $2 million. So that they see Grubb, they see the productivity, they see Michael Penix,
the potential, maybe,
and that's what and the synergy, and that's what they're looking for. And because with Nick Sheridan, it was bumpy, but it was bumpy with the whole football team.
But I mean, let me ask you this: could it? I mean, would it have been, and could it have been? I mean, it's hypotheticals, and we love hypotheticals, right? Could it have been the same way with Ryan Grubb if he was the offensive coordinator at Alabama this past year?
I asked that question, and I got crickets from people that were who were just hollering for Nick Sheridan's head. I was like, would Ryan Grubb have done any better? And then maybe one or two said yes, but I mean, go ahead, Jared.
I agree with that, and I'm not calling for Sheridan's head or anything like that.
Right.
I guess my concern though is. It seemed to me, and it could be 100% Milroe, although I don't want to put the blame all on one guy, but it did seem in some games, like, for example, the Oklahoma game, when things weren't working. For example, the quarterback run, when every team knew Milroe was going to try to run the ball, so they stopped the quarterback run, it just seemed like we did nothing to adjust. And that's what worries me. But once again, that could be just a Milroe thing.
Yeah, I just don't think he was very good at reading defenses, and then they tried to have him check into other, check off and change plays. Against Tennessee, that went horrendously bad, so they had to adjust on the fly. I just don't think it was a good fit all the way around, but they were in a tough spot. He was a captain. My only question to the coaching staff is during the season, why in that game, once they got down, the 24-3, and once they got down, in the and of course in the Michigan game, why they didn't play Ty Simpson. But that's the one thing you can say. But again, they were in a tough spot. They still had a chance to win the Michigan game. Milroe couldn't execute, and they had a couple opportunities in that Oklahoma game. They got a touchdown called back. Some weird things happened. But again, it's just time to move on. Milroe had a good career at Alabama. I wouldn't call it great, but he's in a weak quarterback class in the NFL. We haven't even heard if Ewers is leaving or not. It looks like he is, but I think it's overall a weak quarterback class.
Told Pete Thamel before the game on Friday in an interview that he indeed would be headed to the NFL.
I think everybody understands that because it's time for Arch Manning. And so, it'll be interesting to see what Milroe does and what kind of week he has at the Senior Bowl. Hopefully we can get Jim Nagy on to kind of talk about that. The executive director, we've talked to him in Dallas before.
Yes.
SEC Media Days was getting underway. But, Jared, it's going to be interesting, no doubt about it, but we appreciate the call.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Yep, thanks. And that's interesting. And and he's right. It's a topic that we've talked a lot about, and it's a topic that I think we're going to keep talking about it until Ryan Grubb and his future is known. People are still going to ask, and they're going to constantly ask, and that's fine. All right, I got to get a break in. Blake Lovell's going to recap a wild weekend in SEC basketball, and did Kentucky hide a lot of John Calipari's flaws, and is John Calipari more exposed at Arkansas? That's a question that I was going to ask earlier, but we haven't had time yet. Blake Lovell next.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
From the Fox 54 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Emily Owen. We'll start your Monday off cloudy, but expect a gradual clearing to become mostly sunny by the afternoon. High temperatures going to be warming into the lower 40s for this Monday afternoon. Heading into our Monday night, we'll sit under a mostly clear sky. Low temperatures falling into the lower 20s for the overnight. I'm Fox 54 meteorologist Emily Owen on your home for ESPN Radio 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
They're showing that wreck 35 and Long Hollow Road in Jackson County is clear. Still got the wreck on the board. Well, they just deleted it now. Research Park southbound at Old Madison Pike. And we had Peck Hollow Road at 67 in Morgan County. They were checking on that one. It should be clear now. May still have a stalled truck, though, causing problems. Gordon Drive overpass in Decatur. Snelling needs experienced schedulers and dispatchers for repairs and installs. Snelling, how Huntsville's best companies hire talent. Huntsville.snelling.com. Captain Eck in the Valley Skywatch Traffic Center.
Specializing in simple and affordable rentals, McCurry Van and Car Rental can make sure you have just the right vehicle for your next family vacation, weekend getaway, or if you just need transportation while your vehicle is being repaired. McCurry carries Ford Transit vans and Mercedes Sprinter vans, trucks and work vans, and more. And they offer discounted rental rates for long-term rentals. Now with 4 locations: Athens, Muscle Shoals, Coleman, and Huntsville. Log on McCurryRentals.com to make your reservation now. That's McCurryRentals.com.
Isn't the story of the prodigal son an amazing story? Basically, a rowdy boy who literally wished his father dead, ran away, and consumed his wealth with hard and fast living. Yet the father looked for his return every day, and when the boy got tired of eating pig slop, he decided to return. What did the father do? As soon as he saw that boy, he ran to him, threw his arms around him, and killed the fatted calf for a great celebration. Hey, I'm John Dees, pastor of the Cross Point Church. If you're looking for a church home, come see us, smack dab across the street from the YMCA in Madison. Theisen.
Tom Abraham here for my friend Mike Owen at Owen Home Appliance Center. Are those new school clothes wearing out that old washer and dryer? Well, it's time to get off the bus at Owen Home Appliance Center and learn what a new Speed Queen washer can do for you. They're in stock and are ready for delivery now. At Owen Home Appliance Center, quality products, quality pricing, quality service. It's right there in the name, Owen Home Appliance Center. 2 locations to serve you, Highway 36 in Somerville and the interactive location at Highway 231 in Lacey Springs, just 8 miles south of the river.
All right, welcome back. 8:35 on a Monday morning. Talking Ball 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Scott Tyson, Drew DeArmond. Welcome back in. We've been live here from Bill Penny Toyota. Don't forget, you buy those 3 tires, you can get that 4th one for $1 right now. That's going to go on until January 31st. So get on out here to Bill Penny Toyota. We talked a lot about Alabama. We've talked a lot about Auburn. We talked about a little bit of the SEC standings. We gave you that quick rundown real fast of how the league looked, because you have 3 unbeatens after the first 3 conference games. Auburn, Alabama, and Ole Miss sitting atop there. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams at 2-1. Texas A&M, Missouri, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, and then Vanderbilt at 1 and 2. And then you have 5 teams still winless in the league. Oklahoma, Arkansas, LSU, Texas, and South Carolina 0-3, 0-3, 0-3, 0-3. What a weekend. Getting a little bit of separation in the league, but still, we're going to see, I think, a little log jam for quite a while in this conference.
Well, we're going to talk about that and more, the SEC basketball weekend, the week ahead. He's a huge part of Southeastern 16. That burgeoning YouTube channel. He does a great job covering SEC basketball, and we're going to talk about it for the next few minutes with Blake Lovell, who's been kind enough from the city of Nashville to join us. Blake, I hope the weather over there has cleared up. I hope you're doing well. How are you?
Hey, guys, doing well. Good to talk to you as always.
Yes, sir. And what was your biggest takeaway from the second weekend of SEC basketball?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, one of the things when we started, I was pointing out all the wild home stats for teams and how, I think the home team won 9 of the first 10 games in SEC play, which was not a surprise because it was just an absurd record to that point in the season. But now you're starting to see some of these teams go on the road and win big games, right? Like in Alabama or Kentucky, even Auburn, I think, pulling out the South Carolina game given the circumstances. Like, that's what we're starting to see a little bit more of, and I think that's kind of the main theme right now, is that there is a clear separation, which we always knew there was going to be with some of these teams. And I think you see those teams at the top are starting to separate themselves a bit. Teams at the bottom, with 5 teams right now that are winless in league play. When you put yourself in that position, the way that those 5 teams have, it's going to be hard this year, I think, to get those back, just because, again, we kind of know the grind of the league, and I think that really stood out on Saturday.
What do you make of Alabama? What do you make of Auburn, both going on the road on Saturday? Auburn getting it done in a different fashion against South Carolina, losing Janai Broome, and then Alabama going on the road. And I believe they're still calling fouls. Even though the teams have left, the referees still feel like they should call a couple of them. What did you make of both of those road games?
Yeah, starting with Auburn, I mean, I think it's just, again, South Carolina was one of those teams we've talked about before that they're probably going to upset a team or two this season, even though, they seem to be one of the clear bottom, couple teams in the SEC. They're going to find ways to win one of those games, just as they beat Clemson a month ago. They're going to do that to a couple teams this year, I think, and they'll probably wind up winning a few. But I think it's just, it is hard kind of to put into the context of having the Broome injury. Certainly Auburn wasn't playing their best even before that. But I think for them to go on the road and find a way to win a game like that, especially behind a freshman like Todd Pettiford, I thought that was significant, because now it's going to be about, we know what the front court's made of, but like now we see how the guards really, really step up, and they're going to have to, not that they haven't before, but, I think there's going to be a little bit more pressure on them to deliver, just because it is a different kind of game without Broome on the floor. So I thought, you sort of avoid disaster there if you're Auburn by finding a way to win that game, knowing you got a pretty tough schedule ahead. So I thought it was, kind of showing a little bit of that resiliency with them. But then with Alabama, yeah, I mean, that was probably, one of the best, worst games I've ever seen in terms of just, a thrilling game, but it's just, there's no reason for a game like that. I mean, I hate to keep harping on it, but, 88 free throws, 58 fouls. I just don't think that's something that happens or should happen maybe very often. But then again, you think about the strength of these teams. Alabama is going to attack. Texas A&M is going to attack. And, I'm not surprised that these teams shot a lot of free throws. But it's a good win for Alabama, too, kind of for a different reason, right? Because A&M was without their best player. And so if you're Alabama and you're looking back later in the season and it's the close SEC title race, and let's say you come up a game short, well, you're going to look back at that Texas A&M game and say, man, we really should have beat them on the road without Wade Taylor. And so I think by winning that game, A&M's still really good. But, like I said, it's all about the upcoming schedules. And I feel like all week I've talked about brutal upcoming schedule for this team and that team and that team. I think Alabama's schedule over the next couple of weeks is nowhere near as brutal as some of these other teams. I know they host an unbeaten Ole Miss team on Tuesday. They go to Kentucky on Saturday, but then having back-to-back home games against Vanderbilt and LSU, I think Alabama's schedule here early sets up pretty nicely, and given the chaos everywhere else, that's not a bad place to be.
Yeah, and then Auburn, theirs is difficult. They host Mississippi State on coming up this week, and then on Tuesday, but then a very tricky road trip to Georgia because Stegman Coliseum has all of a sudden become a difficult place to play.
Mike White's got it rolling.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, and I was trying to find, if you want to be optimistic, if you're an Auburn fan and you're looking at this upcoming schedule, the good news is that their built-in 1 week off happens to come in the next 2 weeks, and I think that's
right.
At least a good place to be because between that trip at Georgia and then home against Tennessee, they get that week off, which every team will have this season. So I think it's kind of like, all right, let's say they go in and lose that game at Georgia. Well, you've got a week for Bruce Pearl to try to, fix a few things and try to figure out what they need to work on, with assuming that Broom is still out at that point. And then you're trying to figure it out going in against to play a Tennessee team that, quite frankly, on the road so far, at least, recently, has not looked great. And so I think that's kind of an interesting setup for Auburn now, but that's what I think makes this game tomorrow night so big for them against Mississippi State because Mississippi State's coming off of, a really tough home loss to Kentucky, yet I didn't really change my opinion on Mississippi State all that much. I still think they're a top 15 team. And so can Auburn win that game against a team who feels like they want to get one back since they gave away a home game? I think that's kind of a very fascinating one. But then, you sounded like you said, look at Georgia, back-to-back top 20 wins. Mike White has them rolling. So I think the next 2 weeks, guys, again, with a lot of teams in the SEC, we're going to really start to see what they're made of because I think Georgia and Ole Miss are two teams, too. Look at their upcoming schedules. They are just brutal. Same thing with a team like Vanderbilt. We mentioned the 0-3 teams. Mm-hmm. It's just so many fascinating storylines even this early on.
You look at those 0-3 teams, there's 5 of them right now, Oklahoma, Arkansas, LSU, Texas, and South Carolina. Blake, of those 5, who has that potential to, maybe in a week or two, we're sitting here saying, I remember when they were 0-3. It's hard to believe they were 0-3 to start the year.
Based on performance, I'd like to say Texas, but I think there's a good chance Texas will be 0-5 after this week. Because, I mean, they go to Oklahoma on Wednesday and they go to Florida on Saturday. And so, I mean, I still think probably of that group, Texas is the team that I feel like I've watched and maybe, are like, hey, they're not that bad. But, maybe Oklahoma is the better answer because they do get Texas and South Carolina at home this week. Then they turn around and go to Arkansas, which I think is a very winnable game the following week. But even after that, right, they still got games, Auburn, Tennessee, at A&M, and it's just like, I don't know where those wins are going to come from. And so the thing is, right, I've talked about Texas and Oklahoma. The team in there that I just don't think it's going to happen, and it's Arkansas.
Wow.
And they play two road games this week that are very, very winnable, I think, at LSU, at Missouri. But do I trust them to win both games this week? I don't, because I just look at the way they're playing right now. This is a league where you have the top 3 offensive teams in the country in the SEC, or the top 8. Top 3 are Auburn, Alabama, and Kentucky. Florida's number 8. But then you've got, I think you've got 3 or 4 more teams that are all in the top 35. Maybe it's more than that, offensively. If you can't score, you can't win. I'm all about great defensive teams. I know that defense wins championships, all this stuff, but at some point you got to be able to score. And Arkansas right now cannot score. They can't shoot. And do I trust John Calipari in a half-court offense to fix that? No, not right now. I don't. And so it's wild, isn't it? I mean,
it
look,
is.
They could very well win both games this week. All of a sudden, they get Georgia and Oklahoma at home next week. Maybe they win both of those two. They're 4-3, and they're rolling heading into that game at Kentucky on February 1st. But I can't with confidence say that I think that's going to happen based on what we've seen to this point.
So what you're telling us is and you jumped into it before we could even ask it, is that if you're an Arkansas fan, it might be time to panic.
I think you should be hitting the panic button a little bit. I mean, just imagine if they lose. Even if they lose to Missouri, Arkansas fans would be mad given the rivalry. But if they were to lose to LSU tomorrow night, I mean, that's where, who knows at that point. I mean, then you've got not just worried about, hey, Arkansas fans mad at Cal. What's the players' reaction, right? Like, what's their mindset moving forward into what is still a pretty brutal schedule? Because remember, they've still got 2 games against Texas. They've still got the game against Kentucky, road trip to Auburn. They get Alabama at home. I mean, yeah, so it's like, where do they find those wins? So this is the biggest week of the season for Arkansas. And, again, I'm not saying they can't go 2-0 because they absolutely can. But do I trust them to go 2-0 right now? I don't think so.
What about Missouri? I know they had a couple good non-conference wins. I just have not paid a lot of attention.
And we know how much you love Dennis Gates.
Yeah, I've just not paid a lot of attention to Missouri, but they're 2-1. They're off to a 2-1 start. I mean, they're 13-3 overall. What should we know about Missouri?
Well, I think they're better than even I maybe thought they would be at this point, because they're another one of those teams. Like, could I see Missouri going on the road and losing maybe every game they play in conference play? Perhaps, because they've got a pretty tough road slate, just as everyone does. But the thing is, I also look at them and feel like, hey, they're probably going to have a good chance to serve at home in a lot of these games. And the difference is, last year we are like, yes, they went over and all that, but I said the biggest difference between that team and this team is that they just had no room for error last year, like zero. And they lost a lot of close games. They lost, I can't even remember what the number was, like 7 games by 7 points or fewer or something like that. I mean, they were close in a lot of those games. But the difference is this year, go figure, sometimes if you can just score, you're okay. And Missouri is just much better offensively. This team kind of mirrors the team from a couple years ago that made the surprising NCAA tournament, run to the second round. Were the big surprise of the SEC, got the double bye in the tournament, all those things, because they're shooting it better, they're much better offensively, and they've gotten better defensively, and the reason why is they're forcing turnovers. And so, like I said, could I see Missouri go lose at Florida by 20 tomorrow night? Sure. But I tend to think that when we're talking about talent and the way teams are playing to this point, Missouri may be one of those teams that probably aren't getting enough credit right now, because I think they're pretty talented. They're pretty deep, too. And I wouldn't be shocked if we're looking up, let's say a month from now, although, my goodness, I keep saying it, look at their schedule, too, right? But if you look up a month from now and are like, hey, Missouri's maybe the team that they grab more wins than people thought they would, just because talent-wise, they're probably in the top half, I would say, in the SEC in that department.
Talking to Blake Level, Southeastern 16, talking some SEC basketball here on this Monday at Bill Penny Toyota. But now, Blake, I hate to delve into it so early, but we all know the circumstances with Chris Beard. He's done a remarkable job at Ole Miss. They take on Alabama tomorrow on Tuesday, one of the 3 remaining unbeaten teams in the SEC along with Alabama and Auburn. But Rodney Terry, if they go 0-5, how hot does his seat get? And then Matt McMahon at LSU, I don't think they look like they're very good. Are both of their seats going to start getting hot?
Yeah, I would think, when you look at the Rodney Terry one, like we said, I mean, my goodness, if they are 0-5, that's where, and the thing for Texas, here's the problem, is that they have 0 quality wins this season. They have 11 wins on the year, but who have they beaten? Their best win is going to probably be NC State on the road, who's 9-7 right now. They're not the Final Four team they were a year ago. And so if that's your best win, and your non-conference strength of schedule was 353, then this is kind of showing that, all right, maybe this is a problem, right? And we knew, too, when they hired him, I mean, there was a lot of interesting reaction, right? Just because you are coming off of everything that happened with Beard. But, people were wondering, all right, we all remember, right? Like, go hire Cal, go hire Bruce Pearl, like all these other things. And I think when you get those discussions going and now maybe things are underwhelming, that can happen. So, yes, I think if they start 0-5, they miss the NCAA tournament, let's say maybe they finish 6-12 in the SEC or something, then I think you're going to have serious discussions about maybe what's next. The thing with Matt McMahon at LSU is, and I'll be honest with you, sometimes I forget this, they won 9 conference games last year. And I feel like it's like one of those things where, like, hey, how did that happen? But they did after that year before where they went 2-16. And so I do wonder, even though winning 9 conference games didn't get them into the NCAA tournament, I wonder if that helps a little bit. And also, guys, here's something, too. I don't know the specifics or anything like that, but, I do wonder, like with LSU, like NIL-wise, what does that situation look like for an LSU basketball versus think about all these other teams we've already talked about, right? We know what it looks like at Arkansas, Auburn, Alabama, Kentucky, Florida, like keep going down the line. I just wonder, like, is that one of those things, too, where you're looking up and saying, hey, basketball-wise, what is that compared to everybody else? Because those are the kind of things we have to think about right now in this landscape in the SEC, because we know all the money that's available out there. And so I'm just curious to know kind of what does that look like. But, yes, I think with them, I mean, again, if they don't beat Arkansas tomorrow night, they probably are looking at 0-7, 0-8, something like that to start SEC play. And you just never know, right, when you get to that kind of record. So, it's going to be tough for them this season.
Man.
No doubt. Well,
we're
Blake,
only a week into this thing.
Yeah, this is going to be crazy. But, Blake, we appreciate it. We always enjoy the conversation in SEC basketball. Let everybody know how to connect with you guys at Southeastern 16.
Yeah, I always appreciate it, guys. Yeah, you can find us on YouTube, Southeastern 16. We're going to have our live power rankings coming up here in about 10 minutes. And, boy, I don't think we've ever had a tougher task of trying to figure out how we rank these teams this week. So you can find that there. And, everything else, you can follow me on Twitter at @TheBlakeLevel.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks. All right, Blake Lovell, kind enough to join us. Let's get that break in. Let's wrap her all up next.
You're listening to Talkin' Ball on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
They're showing that wreck 35 and Long Hollow Road in Jackson County is clear. Still got the wreck on the board. Well, they just deleted it now. Research Park southbound at Old Madison Pike. And we had Peck Hollow Road at 67 in Morgan County. They were checking on that one. It should be clear now. May still have a stalled truck, though, causing problems. Gordon Drive overpass in Decatur. Snelling needs experienced schedulers and dispatchers for repairs and installs. Snelling, how Huntsville's best companies hire talent. Huntsville.snelling.com. Captain Eck in the Valley Skywatch Traffic Center.
Tom Luganville here for my friends at Woody Anderson Ford. Bobby White and his team take great pride in their service department, and you can see it the moment you walk into those beautiful new service lanes. And just like a championship team, they all work together to make sure your experience is second to none, whether you drive a Ford or not. Also, check out the gold certified pre-owned inventory at Woody Anderson Ford for great deals every day. Stop by and see them at Jordan and Sparkman or at Woody Anderson of Madison on Hughes Road, or visit WoodyAndersonFord.com.
Eagle Masonry and Installation. It's right there in the name. Eagle is your one-stop shop for block, stone, or brickwork, monument signs, and outdoor kitchens and fireplaces. Eagle also offers the finest craftsmanship and insulation, including fiberglass or spray foam insulation, and of course, insulation removal. Philip Love and his team have years of experience, bringing the region the best in masonry and insulation services. For more information and a quote, visit insulatewitheagle.com or call 256-755-1556. Eagle saves you time. Eagle saves you money. When you call most roofing companies, all you'll hear is, you need a new roof. Not when you call Fleming. At Fleming Roofing and Restoration, we're focused on your needs, whether it's an easy repair or a full roof replacement. Folks around here have trusted Fleming since 1965 for all their residential and commercial roofing needs. And as the area's storm damage experts, Fleming knows all the ins and outs of the insurance claims process. Log on FlemingHSV.com to schedule your free estimate today. Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We show up.
time for tomorrow's headlines today with Scott Tyson and Drew DeArmond on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
All right, we wrap you up. Your NFL playoffs kicked off over the weekend on the AFC side. Houston and the Texans, former Alabama standout D'Amico Ryans has the Texans through 32-12 over the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh. Baltimore over Pittsburgh 28-14. Buffalo over Denver 31-7. It was Washington over Tampa Bay 23-20 and Philadelphia over Green Bay 22-10. So your divisional matchups in the NFC now, we'll see Washington travel to Detroit. And then you've got Buffalo and Baltimore, Houston.
What a game that may be, wow.
Yeah, Houston and Kansas City. Now, Minnesota and the Rams will play today. Remember, they're playing that in Glendale because of the fires there. And our thoughts and prayers continue to everybody out there in the L.A. area that are affected by that. But they're going to be playing this one in Glendale, and the Cardinals doing everything they can to make them feel at home. I mean, they rolled out the new turf with the L.A. Rams logo and painted on it. I mean, they're doing everything they can to make them feel at home.
Like a home game, even though it's a neutral field. And
it's just a terrible, terrible situation.
Yeah, it's just thoughts and prayers with everybody out there. And we'll see. Minnesota's favored, and so far there hasn't been any upsets in the NFL playoffs. And I expect Minnesota to get this thing done. But
you don't consider Washington an upset over Tampa Bay?
No, I love Jaden Daniels. I just think overall that it was a weak division in the NFC South, and I like the way Washington's played.
All right, that's going to put it in for us. We've started the time clock at 7. We're punching out at 9. We're done. We've been here at Bill Penny all morning. And by the way, congratulations, UAH Chargers yesterday. Both women and men get a win inside Spraggins Hall. The men have now won 15 in a row.
Thanks to our listeners, the Moody Center.
Did you know if you own or lease a particular brand competitor of our awesome Ford Bronco or Bronco Sport, you could be eligible for up to $2,000 in Conquest cash, and that's without trading it in. You could save